Every 40 seconds, someone is involuntarily committed to a psychiatric institution. Every year, 1 million people are electroshocked. And worldwide, 120 million people are now prescribed psychotropic drugs, 20 million of which are children. Each year, the psychiatric pharmaceutical industry rakes in $330 billion. Yet they cannot lay claim to a single cure. But protecting the public from lethal psychiatric practices and defending the rights of its victims is the Citizens Commission on Human Rights. It all began in 1969 with the case of one Victor Ghiori. He had been unlawfully incarcerated in a mental institution for babbling incoherently, but in fact, he was merely speaking his native tongue, Hungarian. Securing Ghiori's release was the first of thousands of cases championed by CCHR. In Australia, CCHR exposed a deadly psychiatric practice called deep sleep therapy, wherein patients were placed in a drugged coma and electroshocked. Not only was it done without their consent, 48 patients died during the treatment. CCHR fought on behalf of victims until the hospital was shut down and deep sleep banned. Then, in South Africa, CCHR uncovered the existence of psychiatric camps where tens of thousands of Africans were brutalized and used as slave labor. Subsequently, the World Health Organization and post-apartheid government investigations condemned psychiatry's racism and abuse. In Italy, a CCHR investigation revealed that some 15,000 children in Trento were seized from parents and placed in psychiatric institutions. CCHR set precedent after precedent in Trento courts, and for the first time in Italian history, children are now protected through a city resolution proclaiming that psychiatrists may no longer dismember any family unit. Then again, in Japan, CCHR exposed patient abuse and the financial crimes of psychiatrists and hospitals defrauding the government and taxpayers out of millions. The guilty were convicted and patient protections implemented. While in the United States, CCHR uncovered $1 billion fraud in the nation's largest chain of for-profit mental health facilities. Dozens of prosecutions ensued, with millions of dollars in fines imposed, and the entire chain of corrupt hospitals was closed. And in Israel, CCHR documented a litany of psychiatric crimes that included assault and battery and grievous bodily harm. This led to an official investigation by the Ministry of Health and a raid with no less than 150 police officers on a private clinic. Ensuing public outrage contributed to the ministry ordering that all remaining Israeli private psychiatric hospitals permanently close their doors. To further bring an end to psychiatric human rights abuse, CCHR works with lawmakers, doctors, and like-minded groups to bring about protections for patients. Such as in Europe, where the European Medicines Agency slapped antidepressants with suicide warning labels for children and youths. And the United States and Mexico, where thanks to CCHR's relentless efforts in promoting the Child Medication Safety Act, parents can no longer be coerced to give their children psychotropic drugs as a requirement for them to stay in school. All told, it's better than 220 laws and 400 official drug warnings, forever safeguarding the public from the dangers of the psychiatric industry. CCHR's international headquarters in Los Angeles, California, serves as a public information clearinghouse, documenting psychiatry's harmful practices and publishing its findings in some 18 languages. More than 20 million copies of their publications have been distributed to healthcare professionals, government officials, educators, and business leaders around the world. CCHR's headquarters is also the site of the world-renowned museum, Psychiatry, an Industry of Death. Centered around 15 documentary films, the exhibition presents the unvarnished history of psychiatry, from its origins and practice of putting the mentally ill in cages to the present-day mass drugging of society as the cure for invented mental disorders. Nearly 250,000 visitors have toured the museum, which is an essential part of the curriculum for several local educational institutions. CCHR further sponsors a fleet of Industry of Death traveling exhibits, visiting scores of cities worldwide. These presentations have revealed the shocking truth about psychiatric abuse to over 850,000 visitors around the world. While to reach still more with the truth and raise public awareness, CCHR has produced a series of multi-award-winning documentaries exposing the abuse and deceit behind psychiatry's pseudo-scientific facade, its overdrugging of children and the military, the irreparable harm of its treatments, as well as the financial driving force behind it all. CCHR also provides educators' kits that include a guide with which to hold seminars based on the documentaries. As one example, the Kit for Marketing of Madness provides model legislation, suggested legal protections, and copies of the Psychotropic Drug Series booklets, which outline common side effects of psychotropic drugs, as well as available treatment alternatives. All told, CCHR documentaries and public service announcements have appeared in print, on the airwaves, and across the internet, informing millions with the facts about psychiatry and psychotropic drugs. Wherever human rights are abused by mental health treatment, CCHR is there, blowing the whistle on psychiatric crime, establishing protections for those in distress, and educating the public on the truth behind and alternatives to the unworkable and dangerous practices of psychiatry. Thousands from every faith and walk of life have joined in the fight against psychiatric human rights violations. It is a fight that will continue until psychiatry's abusive and coercive practices cease, and human rights and dignity are returned to all.
I was diagnosed with a chemical imbalance, manic depression.
They diagnosed me with having ADD, conduct disorder,
ADHD,
mild depression,
Major depression, borderline personality disorder,
social anxiety,
severe depression.
disorder, identity problem disorder.
all of these so-called diseases are just made up. They're just fabricated. They're fictions of psychiatry imagination.
What psychiatrists do without their labels? They couldn't pretend to be real doctors anymore, you know? Neither could psychologists, you know? Diagnosing, what a godlike thing to do. Making diagnoses. Here's your treatment, a pill. Because so far they're not proving that any so-called mental illnesses exist. These are labels, and that's all they are.
But without proof, you can't have credibility. So psychiatrists manufacture their own.
It's based on a grab bag of checklists for disorders that are published in a book called the DSM, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. There are no statistics in this book, by the way. That just makes it sound more scientific.
They create this question of disease, and they get together and vote. Is this a disease? All in favor?
The American Psychiatric Association is the publisher and owner and wealthy owner of DSM. They've made a great deal of money on DSM.
Since the first edition of the DSM, the number of mental disorders voted into psychiatry's diagnostic manual has grown to 374. And with each new disorder, psychiatrists create yet another way to defraud the public.
If you have 27 ways to bill in DSM, that's 27 ways to bill. If you have 300, that's 300 ways to bill. So you can pretty much find anyone on the street that could fit into a DSM somehow.
When you build an insurance company, you can't say the word. You've got to send a number. And they have numbers for the most ridiculous things. You know, like arguing with your mother or peeing in the bed.
Adolescent rebellion disorder is an official psychiatric diagnosis. Arithmetic learning disorder is an official psychiatric diagnosis. General anxiety disorder is a recent diagnosis.
The psychiatric industry takes advantage of that. They say, wow, we can get these things categorized, make it look scientific, so let's label everything. Now we have a label for it. We put a coding. Have you ever seen a medical insurance form? Everything has a code.
In DSM, it just looks like sort of some magical numbers. Of course, what we're talking about is reimbursement for mental health treatment as an illness.
The more types of codings, the more types of illnesses you can come up with, the more claims can be paid, and the more reasons for treatment, and the more reasons for revenue for the psychiatric establishment, for the hospitals, and of course, the pharmaceutical companies.
Incredibly enough, while presenting the DSM to the world as scientific fact, psychiatrists freely admit its utter lack of science.
We have no diagnostic reliable markers for almost any illness there is in the DSM.
What we're testing for in psychiatry, it's hard to say because there's nothing specifically.
But as far as a test that's clinically useful, basically we're not there yet.
We don't have any laboratory tests that we can use to determine whether somebody does or doesn't have a mental illness.
There are no good biological tests for detecting mental illness.
There is no test, there's no biopsy you can do.
There is no chemical test right now.
There are no specific tests to confirm the diagnosis or show the improvement, like any blood tests or any x-rays or anything like that.
Oh, in my practice, I don't do any tests. I just speak with people and listen to them, and then I make a decision in what kind of illness.
These diagnoses vary as widely as the psychiatrists who make them. In this hidden camera footage, a person visited several different psychiatrists, complaining of the same symptoms.
I'm extremely unorganized, and I didn't used to be. It's caused problems in the family. It's caused problems getting, I'm self-employed.
So you've got ADD, ADHD, you're depressed, and your depression is bipolar depressed.
You have a brain chemistry disorder that's polygenetic.
You have a lot of the symptoms of depression.
So it seems like it is a mixed picture. What that means is like we got some depressive symptoms and some, high symptoms.
If you're bipolar, only give you mood stabilizer. We don't know how to consider low-grade bipolar.
You are more of the ADD and ADHD. And as far as medications for depression, because I would recommend that you start a medication, which are Zoloft, Paxil, Celexa. Usually propylene XR is pretty good.
I give you some Lexapro in the morning and some trazodone at night.
Lamictal is a better medication for that. It works on your depression also.
But the treatment for any bipolar cycling is the same. Lithium,
Remeron is another one.
trazodone,
It's on your doctor.
We're good at training.
Lexapro, Lamictal,
Equadroid,
Depakote,
lithium, and you may need an antidepressant also with your Lamictal.
We don't know if I give you a medication if it is going to work or not.
To a certain degree, it's trial and error.
You never know if it's the right drug.
How many people have I cured? Well, there are no real cures right now in psychiatry.
I have cured none of my patients.
We're always challenged by our lack of knowledge.
I mean, in fact, we don't know what the causes of mental illness are. Most mental illnesses, we do not know the cause.
Of course, it would be nice to know exact reasons of disorders, but maybe in the future.
I'm the
Director of Research at the American Psychiatric Association. We don't know the etiology of really any of the mental disorders at the present time.
DSM-5, it's grown to 10 times its original size, and it labels everybody. I could find 5 diagnoses that would fit you or anybody else in there.
Compare this to the research methods of pathology, a real science that discovers real diseases using a wide variety of precise diagnostic tests.
We do millions of laboratory tests as well as the structural examination and the microscopic examination. It's a whole series of applied scientific procedures. In the case of psychiatry, there isn't any laboratory tool that can precisely identify psychiatric disease and allow it to be classified.
It's not as if there's some study of tissue or some study of the body or some study of matter. These are all categories which are made up. They're simply made up. They don't exist in nature. They're decided upon by psychiatrists and voted on.
Psychiatrists are not the only ones who benefit from the DSM. Wherever you find a psychiatric diagnosis, you'll find a psychiatric drug.
The pharmaceutical corporations now contribute enormous sums of money for the education of psychiatric residents and for the support of research by their professors, so that psychiatry today has become in America, has become very largely learning which drug to use with which disease or disorder.
This to me is completely unethical, untenable, unacceptable for this to occur. The web of money is all over the place. It has compromised psychiatry, and now it's compromising psychology. And worst of all, it's compromising the patients.
In 2006, a study revealed that 56% of all psychiatrists deciding what disorders to list in their diagnostic manual had financial ties to drug companies. Today, we see the consequences, a barrage of drugs, each one targeted at an invented disorder that is backed by an arbitrary diagnosis found in the DSM.
The fact that it is couched in the language of science without necessarily having any of the scientific data or underpinnings to justify it is as threatening as anything we've seen today.
And psychiatry's latest and most expensive ploy to fool the public by imitating legitimate medicine? Brain scan.
We can scan all the brains we want to. The fact that we see changes in different people's brains, changes in functioning, doesn't mean that we've discovered anything that has its origin in the brain. It just means that we're seeing changes, but it doesn't mean that there's something with the brain.
They have no reliable measures about precise blood flow patterns for any of the psychiatric disorders using any of the scans.
It's marketing. This is marketing. This is not science. This is incredibly effective marketing. It has nothing to do with science.
Psychiatrists and psychologists use the DSM to label 450 million people worldwide as mentally ill, a total equal to the populations of France, Italy, Germany, Canada, the United Kingdom, and Russia combined. While sales of the psychiatric drugs they push have topped $84 billion annually, funding from world governments for these patients grows psychiatry over $250 billion a year. And much of this money comes from the diagnosis and drugging of our most trusting and vulnerable.
Side effects: nausea, vomiting, dry mouth, obesity, dizziness, excessive tiredness, headache, panic attacks,
Seizures,
glaucoma,
abnormal
pain,
hostility,
nervous
high blood
confusion,
pressure,
hallucination,
heart rate, anxiety.
and suicidal thoughts.
What are drugs? What else are they? What if they say they're safe? No! What if they say you're gonna feel better? So what are you going to say when someone says you need to take drugs? No!
Do you have a special birthday message for God? That'd be true.
In your son's situation, I would recommend that we go with medication.
This is what I go through, y'all.
These side effects include mania, aggression, hostility, psychosis, homicidal ideation. At least 8 of the recent school shooters have taken these. Let's see. Got Springfield, Oregon school shootings, the Red Lake, Minnesota school murders, and Columbine massacre. But it's really up to you.
Shut. Okay. So you see, you done saw the truth for yourself. I've been there, wasn't nothing wrong with me. And everything y'all see is what I've been through. Doctors be like, talk to them for a few minutes and they make their own decision. But it don't even be no few minutes. It'd be a couple of seconds. Because they're getting paid. And most of them, majority of them, ain't white folk, ain't black folk. It's them Arabs. Now you notice a lot of them coming over here from India, Indonesia, Egypt, Arab, Saudi Arabia, Czechoslovakia. A lot of these bookers, they working, they practicing psychiatric, they practicing law so they can get away with murder, which makes murder legal. So folk can run around and label me and say, well, yeah, he crazy, he's suicidal, he homicidal. I ain't neither one of them. But see, the whole plot was to continue to give me those pills, so eventually it'll happen. I've already got problems in my reproductive organs. I got health problems. I got pericarditis. I shouldn't be taking this stuff for pericarditis. And it's funny how whenever the nurse would give me something, it's a black marker rubbed out the title of the name of the prescription or whatever it is. Because it ain't really what she giving me. It's something else. Look, y'all can point the finger and say this, that, and the third and say I'm still lying. But if you still think you're getting away, like I've been telling y'all, it's going to get real scary in a minute. Because see, Barbara Thomas know more than what she's talking about too. I ain't speaking evil of her. I'm not. But she said it's some money owed to you, Rod. Some money owed to you. You see people on here talking about they was highly emotional or they was talking too much or whatever, or they got a label for everything. They got a diagnosis for everything, but there was no test done. No test. How can you go to the hospital and get tested for HIV? You can get tested for a common cold or syphilis or gonorrhea or any type of STD. You can go get tested for high blood pressure, high blood sugar, diabetes, gout, all these medical stuff that you can go to the hospital right now and get tested for, and it will let you know proof of what you're dealing with according to the labs. You heard that lady say that one of them said that there's no labs. You can't do blood labs and get a result for mental instability. Now y'all tell me why the Social Security. Look, I ain't gonna. Should I say that, Father? Look, I'm not crazy because I say should I say that, Father. That's my freedom of religion, which is what started this whole thing in the first place. Oh, it was probably beforehand, because I've always been labeled the black sheep. But this is what came into play to make it look like I was really cuckoo, but I'm not, and I'm not. Y'all know I'm not. All y'all, all across the CSRA, all across America, y'all know who I am. But guess what's finna happen? Guess what's finna happen? You saw that for yourself. The exact same thing them people that spoke about, whether it be on the doctor side or patient side or the people who made this documentary, is what I've been going through. The examples of different doctors and what they had to say. The medicines, the different labels. I've told my therapist and everybody else the same thing. They ain't doing nothing but getting paid. It ain't real. It ain't real. Now, y'all continue to lie on the man of God if you want to. You're going to jail. If you don't stop, you're going to hell, especially the church, because you're getting rich off me. Be careful.